Welcome friends, I'm Jen Hilman. Thanks for joining me today as I guide you through some simple massage techniques for relaxing the upper back and shoulders. So this is a chronic area for a lot of people. I'm really glad to have an opportunity to show you some of my favorite techniques, some simple stuff that I think you'll love. So go ahead and leave some comments below. I'd like to find out, do you like it better when I wear my hair up or down? Trying to get a sense on how I should do it for future videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Grab your client and let's get ready to massage. So starting with my partner face down, I like to start with some gentle compressions and some nice lengthening stretches to help open up the spine. It's also very grounding. So just starting standing at her head, I'm just bringing my hands right across the tops of the shoulders here. And I'm gently leaning my body weight in. My arms are extended, so I'm not having to work very hard here. I'm just leaning in, giving a gentle compression at the tops of the shoulder. And my pressure is like down and towards the tailbone, so at a little bit of an angle. And I'll gently walk my hands about midway through the upper back, so kind of coming to that top of the thoracic spine, coming into that space right behind the heart. Again, just leaning a gentle compression. And I'll go ahead and take this down, moving towards the curve of the low back, leaning in. And again, my pressure is slightly down towards the table and down towards her feet. So it's actually helping to gently stretch the spaces in between each of the vertebrae. And then making my way down to the base of the spine. So here my hands are just above the sacrum. So not quite on the sacrum, but just to the top of where the base of the spine comes to meet that sacral point. Giving that nice compression just helps to lengthen out the whole spine. It feels really good. Then from here, I like to take it into a cross body stretch, where I'll bring one hand into the soft part of the top of the hip. So I'm not quite on the hip bone, but down into the soft part of the tissue. Then I'm bringing my other hand across to the opposite shoulder, and I'm leaning in, stretching my hands apart in opposite directions. I'll take that all the way to the end feel, and then gently gliding my hands to the opposite sides, coming in with the heel of my right hand to the top of her hip, and with the heel of my left hand to the top of the opposite shoulder. Leaning my body weight in, I'm stretching my arms apart in opposite directions, just stretching out all the fascia. Then from here, you can glide your hands all the way up to the top of the neck, scooping your fingertips into that occipital ridge. You get a nice good grip there. Maybe not quite a grip, but the fingers just nicely hook in right underneath the base of the skull. And now I am giving a little traction back towards myself, but I try to be mindful because I don't want to just like smash their face into the face cradle. You want to give them that opportunity to feel length in the back of the neck without necessarily putting too much pressure towards their face. All right, then from here I'm going to go ahead and start to apply some oil. I'm using a CBD cream today, which is absolutely my favorite. If you really want to make a difference in somebody's pain and tension, CBD applied topically is incredible for helping to relax those muscles and help the whole nervous system to unwind. So I highly recommend CBD for relaxing that tension. I am using today the Conachrism by Desert Stone Tools, which is absolutely one of my favorites. You can hit me up if you want to learn about how to get your hands on some of this incredible healing oil. All right, so I'm starting with a generous scoop of this CBD because I love it and it works so good. You can rub your hands together to warm the oil, and I'll start by just applying that oil gently across the back. Now, even though we're going to be focusing on the upper back and shoulders, I still like to include the whole back when I'm, at least applying these initial strokes, just so that there's a sense of full body relaxation, even though we're going to focus in one area. So I'm just working to evenly apply that CBD cream across her back, all the way down across the tops of the hips. Now for this technique I'm going to show you, I'm going to be using my forearms. So I also like to apply just a little bit of oil to my own forearms, just so I don't stick. If you feel like there's still enough in your hands, you can just rub your forearms like so. If you feel like you need just a little bit more, it doesn't have to be a lot. You don't want to get too greasy because then you won't have any grip, but you want to have enough glide that you can work across the muscle tissue. So coming in, I'm going to start by gliding my hand across the top of the shoulder and tracing that line until my forearm comes in, working across the top of the trap here. And I'm coming all the way up and over the top of the shoulder. And once I get up on top of it, I'm going to start to rotate my forearm 90 degrees. So now my forearm is perpendicular to her spine. And I can take this down and I kind of follow about to the end of where the traps come in. Then I'll come across. Now I've got to flatten out my elbow as I come across the shoulder blade. You don't want to get too much elbow into the shoulder blade, but you can work the forearm across all the way to the outside edge of the shoulder. So we just trace this big triangular line and we'll come all the way around again. So I'm just rotating my forearm here. Coming in across the top of the traps. Giving that nice steady glide all the way up. And then I'm giving it that slow rotation in my forearm. Reaching, about in line with where is the tip of the shoulder blade. And then it starts to come down. And once you practice and you get really good at it, you can start to bring your elbow in just below the spinous process there on the clavicle or on the scapula. But if you're not sure, just roll to the soft part of your forearm and be mindful of where you come in contact with bone. Now on my third pass, I'm actually going to take it all the way down the spine. So I'm leaning in here, being mindful that I'm staying to the side of her vertebrae, because again, we don't want to get too much like bone on bone. That doesn't feel very good. We really want to work into the muscle tissue, and it's important to work slowly and mindfully so you notice what you feel as you go. And again, coming down to the sacrum, you want to be mindful about that bone-on-bone connection. I'm lifting pressure away from my elbow to just gently glide my arm down the side of the hip. So I don't really have a lot of pressure there. It's really more about just completing the stroke and coming all the way back up to the shoulder here. So that's a very relaxing, long body stroke. Then from here, we can start to focus in on areas of the shoulders that tend to get tight. So usually the first place that I start to investigate is here across the tops of the traps. So I'll start by leaning in using my thumbs. And this is a bit like, a guy with a metal detector searching for gold on the beach, right? So my thumbs are like that metal detector. And I'm starting by just kind of feeling around to see what might be lurking below the surface. And as I explore a little bit with my thumbs, I can feel areas where the muscle tissue is a little more dense, it's a little more stuck, feels more tight. It can have any number of quality of feelings, but you'll notice a difference from that soft, supple muscle tissue to something that feels more firm. And this is where I'm going to spend a little more time when you come across those tight places. And taking your time, slowing down, you can apply steady pressure into those areas that feel especially tight. And depending on what's going on in your partner's body, you may come across like 2 or 3 different areas that are very tight. So you could be spending a little more time working here in the tops of the shoulders. Just using your thumbs to search for where it's tight. And then using your breath, you can lean in to work into those areas. Then after I've spent a little bit of time working the tops of the shoulders, then I like to come down and work in between the shoulder blades, which is another problem area for a lot of people. So I like to start using the flat parts of my knuckles, but basically the technique is the same. So I have a different tool that I'm using, but I'm sweeping a broad area and searching for anywhere that feels especially tight. Now you may notice I'm using my knuckles, but also bringing my thumb into play. So I have all these tools that are feeling around for tight places. And then once you've kind of warmed up the area and you've started to notice where things are a little more tight, that's where I go in and give it that extra love. Using my thumbs here, it's more detailed, right? Now we're really going in and working those specific areas. Yeah. As your partner starts to relax, you can encourage them to take some deep breaths. That will help their muscles to unwind and soften, allowing them to have that sense of really letting go in the areas that are tight. Now we can continue that same basic process as many times as you need, coming across the top of the rhomboids here. I'm noticing another area here that feels a bit tight, so we can start to focus in there. So it really is a fascinating journey that every body is different. Everyone's body feels different. So the more people you can practice on, the more experiences you can have with different holding patterns, different areas of tension, different qualities of muscle tissue, it will really help to expand your skill set and your knowledge and just your inherent understanding of how to work the body. So I do encourage you, go ahead and save this video and find some friends that want to practice with you. I can tell you in my experience, it's never hard to find people who are willing to let you practice massage on them. People are usually all too eager. Now, after you've worked your main tight areas, bear in mind that you can spend as much time as you need to here. I again like to just trace this whole line all the way down to the hips. And this is where, in a longer session, I would begin to transition into some low back and hip work. If you're interested in learning about how to do some techniques for the low back and hips, you can follow along with my next video that will outline some great techniques for you there. For now, I'm going to come all the way back up, and I like to finish here with a little massage along the neck. So this is a really great area where the neck is exposed to you. I think a lot of people don't think about working the neck from this angle, but it's actually a really great vantage point. I like to come in and, using a very delicate grip, I like to massage those muscles right along the neck on either side of the spine. So this is actually still a part of that trapezius. It comes all the way up here and attaches superficially at the base of the skull here. So that trapezius muscle is big, you guys. It comes all the way up the top into the base of the skull and works all the way down about halfway there and comes across to attach at the shoulder. So that trapezius muscle is a big deal. So we got to give it love from every angle. So I like to massage it all the way up to the base of the skull. And then from here we can prepare to move to the second side. So moving on to the second side, we'll glide my forearm across the top of the trap. And we're just starting with that big triangle. So once I come to the top of the shoulder, I'll rotate my forearm, bringing my elbow along the edge of the spine and down across the scapula to the shoulder. And then you can go again. So I love this little stroke here, this little combination, because I can move in this triangular cycle multiple times without ever really having to break contact with my partner's body. So it aids in that sense of relaxing and letting go, because you're really staying with them the whole time. And just move as slow as you need to really feel the body and respond to the contours that you feel. And then on the third pass, I like to take it all the way down. So again, rotating the forearm, leaning in the body weight. Be mindful where the spine is. We come all the way down to the hip. And then again, softening my forearm, softening my elbow. I just glide all the way down the side of the hip and trace my hands back up to the top of the shoulder. And then we can start to move into some of that more detailed work. So using the tops of the knuckles here or the thumbs, so either tool. If I'm working on a smaller person, I like to use my thumbs. If I'm working on a much bigger person, sometimes using the knuckles feels better, so you can play around. But I'm starting out by just doing that scan. Just feeling across the top of the shoulder to determine where are the tight spots. And I definitely notice a few. So that's where we start to hone in. Finding that trigger point or that knot and lean in, a steady, consistent pressure. You can make gentle circles. You can gently trace your fingers. You can do little vibrations. There's all kinds of ways that you can kind of coax the muscles to relax. And of course, encouraging those slow, deep breaths is very, very helpful. And sometimes you just have to be patient with it and the body will respond. Sometimes it's just not going to let go in one session. And that's when you need to have a conversation with your partner about setting up some regular sessions so you can really tackle those areas for them. Yeah, so just working into whatever tight spots you find, using your thumbs to help guide you to the tight places, and then putting in that focused pressure to work into those particular areas. Then we can take this up into the rhomboids. That's the muscle group between the shoulder blade and the spine. And again, I'm using the flat parts of my knuckles and my thumbs here to just search around, taking a survey of the landscape, feeling what's going on underneath. And then when I begin to observe where the tension is, I'm going to position myself so that I can address those particular areas. So I'm using the flat parts of my thumbs here, leaning in. And what I'm noticing on this side is that instead of having one particular knot, there's really more of a tight band going on here, which is something that you may notice with people. And so I'm honing in on that particular band of tissue and gliding my thumbs along the length of it. And I'm giving it a pretty steady, firm pressure, coming all the way out to the edges. So this is another way that you can target those particular areas. It might not be one specific knot, but you might come across more of a band of tight tissue. And then again, you can repeat the process as many times as needed until you feel that you've adequately addressed all those areas of tightness. Yeah. Yeah, it feels good to get a massage and good to work out the tension. So I hope that you will favorite this video and share it with a friend, and you guys can take turns and share that love with each other. You don't have to have a massage license to be able to share therapeutic touch and to be able to help each other feel good. It's such a precious gift to give one another. So after I've worked the top of the shoulder here, I'm just going to take one long stroke down the length of the spine, all the way across to the hips. And again, in a longer session, this is where I would start to move into working the low back and hips. But for now, we can come all the way up and again, work on that line across the very top edge of the trapezius there. Just gently kneading across the edge of the muscles there. And this is another area you may notice some particularly tight areas. It's not uncommon. So if you do feel something that feels extra tight, you can spend a little extra time. And once you feel complete, I like to finish with a little traction pull at the skull. Sometimes I'll take it into one more full back compression, just gliding the tops of my knuckles, the tops of my fists, all the way down the length of the spine. I just love this because even if you're just giving that upper back and shoulder massage. This still gives a sense of completion, that you've still like really touched the whole back, even though you had that particular point of focus. And then coming to the end of my session, I like to just finish with a moment of stillness. You can place your hands right at your partner's head or one right behind the heart. And take some deep breaths here and feel gratitude and appreciation for the chance to share and connect in this way. So thanks so much for joining me, and thanks for allowing me to be your guide. Thanks to my very good friend Veronica for modeling for me. You can check her out at Veronica Rockstar DeWitt on Instagram. You can visit her website, vitamindance.com. Have a wonderful afternoon. Leave your comments below. I look forward to seeing you next time. Namaste.